Um, right. So good morning, everyone, and good afternoon if you're joining from other parts of the world. Thank you so much for coming to today's webinar. Today, we are going to launch these expert working groups, and this is round one. Thank you for every one of you who have filled the interest form for being an expert in one of the areas that we are looking for. Okay, so just briefly, what we are going to do today is we are going to introduce the objectives, activities, different timeline of how we are going to work in these groups, and the funding arrangement for the working groups. I think it is also important to know that these are not the projects that we are funding, but it's mostly to do with already funded projects or the different projects that you have been working on, bringing all those findings together as experts and producing some tangible outputs. And we'll go through those tangible outputs for each of the expert working groups. Suggestions. So if you haven't applied for any of the expert working groups, but you would really like to know and or to contribute and say that, these are the things that expert working groups should be doing, then you're more than welcome to put out the suggestions on the chat. Then we'll have a breakout room session where we'll be putting all the different experts in the different themes. So there are 7 themes to start with. So we'll have a proper sort of a little in-depth discussion on what the tangible outputs could be from that particular group. And then finally, you guys will present the summary who have gone into the different breakout rooms, and we are going to take the next step forward. Okay. So the idea behind the expert working group is that we need to facilitate the knowledge exchange between SFN plus projects and the different members who are part of our community. So we have funded around 103 SFN Plus projects since 2017. Some of them have been funded directly through STFC Food Network, and some of them have been co-funded by some of the institutions such as DEFRA, FSA. So we need to bring in the understanding and the findings from all the projects together. Apart from SFN projects, we are also interested in understanding your experience in the similar area. So for example, if you have worked on any of the other projects, but the theme would be similar. For instance, vertical farming. We have funded, I think, 4 or 5 projects within vertical farming, but there could be projects that you are working on, which again, you will benefit by sharing knowledge. Then we would really like you to bring in those activities and the knowledge that you have gained from other projects together as an expert within this working group. Then deliver tangible outputs, and these outputs are for either policymakers, businesses, or funding bodies. So we have very specific requirements from the expert working groups. In terms of examples of what the tangible outputs would look like, we can develop some training needs analysis, and that training needs analysis could be for industry or for Innovate UK, for instance, or for jointly for STFC and other UKRI. And again, similarly, future research agenda, mostly for UKRI, and then we can specify which of the UKRI would fit more to deliver that sort of research agenda. Collective best practices, so like best practices or whatever knowledge you have gained from different project groups from your communities as well, coming together within this EWG. Then industry or policy relevant reports, not really long reports, but very short, snappy reports, like, with few bullet points. And we'll have those admin support to provide you for generating those reports. Then training or teaching materials, if you're interested in any of these areas and you find this group is really good to bring in the different findings, so we can help you facilitate generating some of the training and teaching materials or the case studies that we can use in the classrooms. And it will be a joint ownership for everybody. You would be participating in expert working groups. Then we can also work while we are discussing of the different ideas and bringing things together. If we do find some of the research agenda that we have highlighted in expert working groups, and call closer through the time, generally with a deadline of 3 to 4 months, we can work on the co-developing grant proposals, and again we'll have some admin support to deliver those sort of intentions. Then joint journal papers, book chapters. We are thinking to produce a book from SFN Plus project. We have been approached by Emerald to publish the book and bring in the findings together from 103 projects under, let's say, innovations for food systems, that sort of area. So if you're interested in collaborating and contributing as expert working group, then we would definitely love to hear that from you. Blog writings, 2 to 3 minutes pitch or marketing video for industry, policymakers, funders. This is something, again, we can fund. So for example, like, any of the findings of what you have done so far in different projects as an expert, and where we want to go and why that is important. And that's sort of like, pitch video that can attract industry funding or policymakers funding, or the different UKRI funding. We can launch some of these videos in our conference as well. And develop masterclasses, materials for CPDs, which is continuing professional development. So many of the universities we run CPDs, many of the organizations that you are coming from also, they run CPDs. So we can jointly produce materials for them, and all the cost would be shared between SFN, and running cost can, of course, be shared with all the experts who would be delivering those materials. So we are able to support you in this. Okay. So the 7 thematic areas that we are wanting to start working on as the expert working groups are smart, sustainable vertical farming. So for instance, if you're working on the different projects, it would be really good idea to bring some of the learnings and the knowledge gaps together. Then remote sensing and AI for agriculture and soils. Digital platforms for smallholder farmers. This is again, like, there are different platforms which have been actually funded by SFN, some in India, some in different countries in Africa. So we are again wanting to understand, let's say if our objective is to increase the productivity for farmers. So for instance, what would be the different sort of data types that needs to be collected? And then that could be like, making that as a maybe standardized operating protocol. So SOPs for different organizations who are working towards a certain objective, the SOPs for them for data collection or data analysis and that sort of thing. So collectively bringing those sort of ideas together for farmers. Similarly, cold food chain, we have funded 3-4 projects around this area in different countries, India, Uganda, Kenya. So again, bringing learnings from them together. Standardizing LCAs for measuring environmental impact of food systems. Now, this thing has always come up when we, especially when we work with industries on whether or not we have a standardized method or harmonized LCA. That any supermarket, if they use it, nobody can actually question them. That this is a kind of a selective criteria that you have done for LCA. So if we can come up with a standardized or harmonized LCA for the industry that can be used for literally any organization, then that would be a win-win for us and as well as for others who are looking to apply such LCAs. Then bioeconomy and smart food systems for sustainable and healthy futures. And finally, EDI. So what we need to do more in terms of making this network more inclusive, diverse, and stand for equality. Okay, so these are the 7 thematic areas. Now, what we will do is we'll definitely feedback. We are asking you to make action plans with timeline, and we are going to feedback on action plans. We are providing you the platform for disseminating the tangible outputs, and we will be also marketing. If you do develop courses and training materials, we would be marketing those, and we would be marketing you as experts as well to the network. We would be providing access to training courses and materials for all of you. So all the expert working groups would be able to share the different materials and the courses developed from other expert working groups. We would be also providing you some nominal expert fees for working towards some of these tangible outputs, and administration and knowledge exchange support. Unfortunately, Paulina, who is our knowledge exchange coordinator, is unable to join in today's meeting, but she would be there in coordinating the meetings for most of the expert working groups, and mostly it would be in the afternoons in the UK time, because she might be working from Mexico. So that's another thing that I wanted to bring up. In terms of timeline, we need to nominate a chairperson or a co-chair or co-chairpersons or people for the group of when there is more than 8 members in the expert working groups. Yeah, so if there are less than 8 members, we are just going ahead with 1 chair. If there are more than 8 members in the expert working groups, then we'll break that expert working groups into possibly 2 of the groups, and then we can have 2 co-chairs. Okay, develop action plans with 3 tangible outputs. And again, you start working as the experts from today onwards, because now you'll have access to all the spreadsheets who have applied for the similar expert working groups. Then discuss the action plan with SFN team members. So once you provide us the action plans by 20th of February, we should be able to come back to you within a week's time of whether or not, like, that would be a tangible output in the given timeline and in a given budget as well. Implement the action plan. So between end of February and 31st of May, you would be asked to implement those top 3 action plans, a report on tangible outputs and impacts, and then we are asking you to develop a report by 15th of June, and we would also provide you platform in SFN annual conference to present some of the key findings of those tangible outputs. Okay. So the action plan for today, it would be that please outline 3 tangible outputs in your action plan, and Cindy would be sharing the Google Doc with all of you once we put you in the breakout rooms. Output should bring about impacts to policymakers, businesses, or funding bodies. An action plan template, now it will be shared with you all once we are in the breakout rooms. Okay. Funding, so there should be a clear demarcation that this is not funding any new projects or any RA. This is funding directly associated with you as an expert contributing your time to develop the tangible outputs, examples of which I've just mentioned in the previous slide. So there is a very nominal expert charge, if depending on whether you are a chair or you are a member. So between £150 to £200 per day as expert fees. Okay. This is a standardized UKRI expert fees as well for chair for some of the early council people, or like knowledge exchange people. So chairperson and co-chairperson should submit a report with the cost breakdown. Then we'll have some additional funds to produce videos or marketing videos for that expert working groups. Okay. Okay, depending on what your plans are, we might be little flexible in terms of funding because we have kept a little bit of buffer funding, but depending on how much important that action plan is and how much impactful that action plan is for one of the stakeholders that we are discussing, we would be flexible enough to fit that in our budget. Okay, so now we are open for suggestions for expert working groups. Example, you have just seen some of the examples I've highlighted in my previous slides. But if you are an audience and not an expert who has applied for SFN working group, then please feel free to use the chat box or raise hands, to provide your feedback that what you would like expert working groups to do and what would be helpful for you as a member of SFN community to see from expert working groups. Okay, so we will stop here for now, and we'll have maybe, Cindy, how many minutes do we have before we break out?
About 20 minutes.
No, for breakout we have 20 minutes, but how many minutes before we break out?
5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. Right. So I think probably it would be better that we are doing the introduction in the breakout rooms. Yeah. But if there are any questions or suggestions so far from the presentations, please do let me know. And when we are in the breakout room, it would be helpful to if you are able to switch on your video, it would be helpful to just make yourself familiar with other experts within that room. Yes, Jens.
Just a quick comment, because you mentioned in your talk that expert groups would be providing information for stakeholders and businesses, and one more thing that I forgot. And it strikes me having
policymakers, businesses, and UKRI.
Policymakers, yes, thank you. It strikes me that having supported several food projects over the years, there are different themes, some of which fall into the scope of some of the expert groups, where some technical work might be useful, like supply chain management and stuff like that, that actually cut across several different food projects and could enable those food projects to do more with the funding that they get from the Food Network.
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, is so that would be something that an expert group could suggest, that somebody should develop a supply chain platform that can support multiple.
Yeah, that could be one of the suggestions, yes.
Okay, I see. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jens. And thanks, Pete. So Pete would like to see an expert working group focused around technology for effective climate resilience and adaptation measures in food systems. Yes, so we do have an expert working group, but then that is on agriculture, all the technology and the AI related to soil and agriculture. However, for the entire food system, we can look into something in bioeconomy expert working group, where we are looking into smart food systems. So that could be something that definitely we can pick up. Packaging solution for a sustainable environment and ingredient flexibility in food sustainability. Packaging solutions, I think we can work on this and look into this in sustainable cold chain expert working group. So thanks, Katie, for this. Pete, yes.
Hi, Sunil. Yeah, just thought I'd explain a bit more in that I think, it's in quite a broad sense as well of kind of hard technology, but also data science and numbers and, all those kinds of techniques and modeling and predictive approaches as well. And I guess from my perspective, it might start with the UK food chain, but of course there's lots of course that the UK food chain stretches overseas anyway, and there's lots of international dimensions too. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Pete. Sarah, yeah, we do agree on circular food systems, climate effect on food. But in terms of the expert working group, we'll have to talk about what would be a kind of tangible output. So what in circular food systems, for instance, what learnings have we gathered? Are we able to produce any sort of like, training materials or master classes for any of the industry practitioners, and that sort of area? Are we able to cover like the understanding of the different gaps coming from different projects, and where should we be heading in terms of covering those gaps? What should be the future research agenda in and around circular food systems? And that can, something of that sort of thing would be, we should be able to cover in bioeconomy. Bioeconomy expert working group. Katie, a universal database on consumer purchasing trends. Yes, that's a good idea. But again, if we are able to collate information for generating databases, or this could be part of a future research, that is something that maybe we need to discuss a little bit more in details in relation to, yeah, what would be the best way forward. Yes, Rachel.
Hi, Sanal. Nice
Hi,
to see
Rachel.
everybody. Hi. Just wanted to share an observation, and it might not be something that a single expert group would work on, but it might run across multiple ones. And that's, we often see innovation solutions with byproducts that create packaging solutions or ingredients, which everyone's putting in the chat, then actually hit regulatory barriers because they weren't aware of them early enough in the program. So it's about realization of the innovative solutions to understand for regulated products and the landscapes for all different sorts of foreign markets and local markets. So it's more of a question of, do you think that would be an expert group, or would that be expertise to feed into a range of expert groups, almost as a checkpoint or a factorial?
Yeah. So that's a very good point, Rachel. Thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, some of these areas would cut across more than one expert working group, and I completely agree to that. So when we are at that point, probably it would be we will offer a platform to have a proper sort of like dissemination and discussion between those expert working groups. And if we do feel like there is a certain specific area that needs to be a little bit more intense, and we need a little bit of more time in developing that across the different expert working groups, then we will offer that possibly in the next stage. So this is round one, and we are aiming to achieve at least 3 tangible outputs by June. So if there are opportunities coming from this round one, and we feel like there should be a cross-cutting expert working group, or a cross-cutting expertise that should be working with more than one expert groups, then we will launch that hopefully in July or August time. And then there would be a next cycle where we can complete some of those cross-cutting things. So thank you for that. Yes, Laurie.
Hello, Snell.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask a really, really stupid question now.
that's fine.
Who do we see as the audience for these expert working groups? So I guess what I'm concerned about is that I'm going to be out of my depth and talking to people who already know quite a lot about an area, or if we have tiers, whether or not I would be talking to students, small businesses, what kind of level are we pitching?
Yeah, so I've mentioned in my slide, so we are really interested in especially the top 3 stakeholders. It's like businesses, one or more of the businesses, and policymakers. So we would be looking into their research priorities, and we would be pitching in something that addresses some of their research priorities. And the third one would be a future research agenda for UKRISE. Fourth one, we are still open and we are up for discussion. It could be materials related to our own schools and the courses for students, training materials. And we are very much welcoming those sort of ideas if it is coming across. So let's say, and there are several different, like 10 different universities, there is no harm in bringing learnings together from the different projects that could be actually shared on some of the case studies that different modules would pick up in different universities. So that can also be one of the audiences. Yeah. A short presentation in annual conference on regulatory and risk management aspect to consider be addressed, as well as suggested framework to apply groups thinking for next stage after the first stage. Yes, definitely. So the second day we are keeping 4 expert working groups, and definitely, Rachel, I will be in contact with you while developing that full agenda for the second day in our conference. I am conscious of time. And I think we, Meslin, just very quickly, if it is short and quick, please feel free to know. But we will be opening now our breakout rooms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just try to drop my idea. I really appreciate for the organizations of this webinar, by the way. I'm just from Ethiopia. We can really talk about several things with regard to food. I hope so. My idea with regard to this situation is that we normally realize there is a loss of food from production, transport, preparation, and consumption. And I'm very much interested with this area, in addition to the climate issues that I have already raised. So, can this be part of the idea with regard to this situation that you are actually preparing? That's my question.
So food loss and things, we are addressing it in sustainable cold chain. If the food loss is related to the fresh produce, we are addressing that in sustainable cold chain expert working groups. Yeah, definitely that can be part of it. Okay, I think we have to now open the breakout rooms, otherwise we'll lose on in terms of the time. And we would really want to offer I'm not sure 20 minutes, but 15 minutes to all the experts in different breakout rooms to introduce yourself. It is mostly a kickoff. So even if you don't get to all the 3 action points, that is fine. You still have time to come back by 28th of Feb, right, Cindy? Yeah. But it would be a good way of introducing yourself, your project, what you do, and why this expert working groups among your team, and what you can actually offer. Okay, so breakout room already have expertise in, you already bring your experiences from the different projects together, and you are seeing and hearing other members bringing in experiences from their projects. This is an opportunity to make sure that we have a collective understanding of a similar theme or a problem that we are wanting to understand and propose and understanding for other stakeholders as well. So what we are going to do, because I was in the different rooms, and I would really like to have a proper sort of conversation with each of the expert working group in details. So what we are going to do between now and 28th of February, that we are going to arrange separate meetings for each of the expert working groups so that there is a midpoint catch up before 28th of February deadline, where you are producing the action point from that expert working groups. Before that, we are going to offer you all the details of whoever was there, all the email ID and everything. If everybody agrees to share their email ID with the group that they were in, to catch up with each other first. So in the next 2 weeks, I would I'm hoping and requesting that you at least have a catch up or a couple of catch up before we start catching up with all the expert working groups between mid-Feb to end of Feb, to understand what would be a reasonable thing to do within that EWG. But if there are any questions, yeah, I know some of you need to go. That's fine. Completely understand that. But if there are any questions at this point, please do let me know, or unmute yourself, because you all are muted as soon as you entered into the main room.
Can I ask, will you send around the slides for reference?
Definitely, we'll be sending around the slides.
Because we were still toiling with what is expected of us as a working group, and so I think that will be useful.
Yeah, definitely, we will be sending you the slides.
Thank you so much. We were just shaping some broad outputs that we were still struggling to obviously combine this.
Especially if it is a big group, Luisa, and I saw that your
Mm-hmm.
group is very big. So what we would
Mm-hmm.
suggest is maybe, like, if you're putting forward the ideas of what learnings has been done in the different sort of projects, maybe cluster them together, see if if we are able to cluster those ideas together, and if we think that we need to break these expert working groups into two different things, then we'll do that. Yeah, Guy.
So is there a place to find, what's the best place to find information about the SFN projects that were funded? I mean, the website has a list with a very short blurb on each, but where there are, is there a repository of reports on the projects that finished, that are publicly available, or where can we find any?
So there would be, so the best place, again, it would be the website, and there are different sort of videos as well, like, once the project has been completed, we have been able to upload some of the videos. What I can do is maybe Cindy and Kush will take the initiative or collating all the information from 103 different projects together in one of the files, like, it would be summary though, because we can't share the entire proposal. But some of the projects which has been completed, they have submitted their a report of completion and achievement, so we can have the summary of that. Probably that might take a little time for generating that sort of databases, but then the summary thing that the different projects are doing, that can be generated very easily.
And is it possible for us to request contact details to those projects from you? Because I know.
Yeah, those are there. Those are there. Yeah, those are already there. So every project that we mentioned, we'll at least mention the PI of the project. Yeah.
And the email, if it's okay.
Yes. Okay. Yes, Mesfin.
My question is regarding these project applications. As you might have realized what's happening here in our country and across Africa, food shortage is one of the major issues that we normally know. And even if we are living in such type of situations, we are still exporting fruits and vegetables to Europe. That's also another connection that we think with you guys in Europe. But I feel sometimes a kind of difficult feeling that is SFN is ready to sponsor projects in Africa? That's my question. The second question is that most of the applications are having a formality that if you have a previous project, we will consider you and the like. And this is my second question. Are you ready to accept new ideas and new projects from
Okay, Mesfin. So probably for that, we would need maybe a meeting outside this group meeting. As I mentioned before, this is not for generating any new projects. This is for making sure that we have collective understanding from the existing projects that you all are doing.
Thank you.
Expert. But yeah, and we have funded projects in different countries in Africa through SFN before. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I completely understand if you need to jump off. Guys, please feel, and really thank you to all of you who were able to join in today's kickoff meeting. I'm sure you at least got some time to introduce yourself and learn about the other experts within the group. From today onwards, then you will be we would be putting you in touch with all the people who were there in your breakout rooms, and if along with the spreadsheet as well, the original spreadsheet of that expert working group. and so that you don't miss out on the other members who weren't able to join in today's webinar. Yeah, and we would be catching up with each of the expert working groups separately, one by one, between mid-Feb to end of Feb. Okay. Thank you all for joining in today's workshop, and I am looking forward to interacting with many of you over the next 4 weeks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Spencer.
Yeah, bye, everyone.
Bye.